It was here, in the jungles of Tanan, that I did last play my ranged survival hunter. I loved ranged survival so much. It was the spec that got me into raiding. It was the spec that got me into casual PvP, and it was the first spec I took to 2K in Arena. So in a lot of ways, it was my conduit into World of Warcraft as a serious hobby. I got my entire guild exalted with the Sabretooth faction, whatever, Fangrilla, because I was more than happy to come out here and help them farm. Even though I was already exalted, that's how much I love the spec. The combination of explosive shot procs, black arrow, AoE serpent sting on top of that explosive trap, are you kidding me? It was a dream. And then Blizzard decided to take one of the most popular range specs in the game and turn it into a melee spec. And once that happened, I left my hunter for good, as did many other hunters. And then I'm scrolling through the WoW subreddit, and what do I see? The dev who reworked survival into melee talks about why he decided to fuck over the hunter community. And he says it was pretty risky. What this should say is I fucked up massively. You can even, if you want to take the time, come down here and read in the comments how many people agree with me and how many people say and how many times it's upvoted that it was very disappointing that you took a spec away from people rather than just making another spec. Now, obviously, with that history, I'm very biased against Mr. Andrew Chambers here, right? Matter of fact, I'll probably hate him for all time. That's not his fault. That's probably an issue with me, but it is what it is. You take my main spec away, and then what? I'm supposed to like this guy? Come on. I know people say, well, you could just keep it professional. Do I sound healthy enough to keep it professional? Okay, I get into my classes. If you want to be all static and boring, go ahead. I give a damn. Now, the good news is I think we can all agree that I'm an amazing paladin. However, I still have this chip on my shoulder about range survival. But to be fair, I came to the video to listen to what this guy had to say, and I was doing good until he started lecturing me on fantasy first. So before we even talk about fantasy, let's talk about the reality of what melee survival did. Melee survival took one of the most popular range specs in the game and turned it into a melee spec, which there's already too many melee spec between DKs, warriors, rogues, druids. I mean, there's just a ton of melee specs in the game. You took a unique mobile dot class and turned it into another melee spec. Also, and you can look at any metric and see this, you took one of the most popular classes in the game, range survival, and turned it into one of the least played. Now, it's hard to say exactly, what the peaks and numbers were because a lot of that has to do with balance. People tend to play what's the most tuned up. So balance has a large effect on popularity, but most certainly melee survival has never touched the numbers of range survival. Now, I'm not arguing, and I don't want to get into the argument of whether it's good or not. Whether the spec is good or not is not the argument. It could be the best spec in the game, and to most certainly the 12 people that play it, it probably is. It's just simply a case then that multiple things are true. You love the spec more than ever, but there's tons of people that desperately want their range survival hunter back. The audacity gets further increased when you see this guy come in and he starts lecturing us on fantasy first while showing a picture of Rexar, a dual-wielding BM hunter. So right off the bat, BM hunters are kind of in a weird place already and probably should have been the melee spec, right? When we're talking about beast mastery hunters and class fantasy, I just hate the direction they've gone in general as a former hunter main. I mean, here it says it's a master of the wild who can tame a wide variety of beasts to assist them in combat. I think pulling out random pets out of your pocket is so lame. You know, oh, I need my hero pet, or I need this stat out, so I pull out this pet. When I think of Beastmaster theme for me, I think of that dwarf in the classic cinematic with his bear, and they're bonded. Like, it's an intimate relationship between you and one animal. It's not a whole bunch of pets that you keep in your fanny pack you carry around and you flip out when you need it. Further, having dwarves have affinity with bears and night elves having affinity with cats and trolls with raptors and stuff, to me, that's very thematic, and I like those types of things. They've gotten completely away from that. Now you see hunters running around with a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and not only one Tyrannosaurus Rex, now you can have two Tyrannosaurus Rex, and then you can throw porcupines out of the sky. It's just so awful. It's pop a pet. The pets don't mean anything. There's no connection or theme to it. They're just stat sticks, and it's awful. And Kill Command is just such an awkward ability. You giving your dinosaur a kill command, shouldn't it already be kind of in that mode? Do you really need to tell your T-Rex to bite something? And are you that good of a hunter if you tamed a T-Rex that you have to command to kill shit? I mean, that's just what they do, right? And for someone who's such a master of the wild, you're the one who tamed a dinosaur you have to tell to bite something every 6.4 seconds. It just seems crazy to me. And how this gets passed as some awesome spec. You know what people really love about their hunter is that they can flip around with their ADHD and do their full rotation without having to not move. That's what the real appeal is, because it's most certainly not some fantasy. I mean, if we're going to get real honest here, running around and collecting as many animals you can and stuffing them in a stable isn't really like a great I love animals theme. You sound like kind of a monster. God help you if you're an animal in the World of Warcraft with a unique color or skin. You are going to be mercilessly camped, killed, and kidnapped, and then stuffed in a stable for some hunter's collection. Isn't that a horrific thing to do to animals? But they're masters of the wild and they love their pet. I mean, it just does not make any sense to me at all. And it really falls apart, I think, under any type of scrutiny. And yet, here we are. But I think we can all agree that if you're going to fight next to a giant T-Rex, it certainly makes sense that you could be up next to it fighting in melee. And so to me, BM always made more sense as the melee spec. So you're going to lecture me on fantasy when you completely ignored the actual fantasy that was already in the World of Warcraft. And let's not forget, we're in 2024 now here. Look what he's carrying. Oh, dual wield axes, except for melee hunters in the World of Warcraft don't get to dual wield axes. Matter of fact, they're stuck with some of the most embarrassing polearm animations I've ever seen in any video game. So you screwed a bunch of people who loved a class out of their favorite class. You stripped that whole fantasy down, and you didn't even have the decency to match it up with the fantasy that's already in the game. And then on top of that, you didn't even have the decency to dress it up with good weapon animations and the obvious use of dual wield weapons. Like, what the hell? You can't dual wield axes, even though the character that inspires the melee hunter dual wields axes. You can't do it on your hunter in the game. How the hell can you look at survival and not think WTF? That alone is the WTF enough for me. When you think about what hunters have to endure, you have to see them with those polearm animations, and then you take that whole class and wrap it in the worst transmogs of any class in the game. It shocks me. It just shocks me how people are okay with it. They use Rexar in the game as an example of a survival hunter, but you can't even dual wield weapons. Are you kidding me? And people just eat it up. I don't know what the hell. It shocks me. Like, have some pride, folks. I mean, I get it. You like melee hunter. First off, you could have easily made it a 4 spec, and then you would have avoided all of the drama. That would have taken a little more effort, not much, but a little more. Now, to be fair to old guy in the video, he does make a point, I think, when he says that there was a lot of similarity in the way the hunter specs played out. I think that's kind of true, actually. But there's a huge difference between adding flavor to the classes and abilities that help delineate the experience and taking a ranged class, turning it into a melee class, and saying fuck you to all the people that invested in that playstyle and that character. That is a completely different approach. I mean, they're both approaches you can take, but you chose the low road, my friend. And again, you can go look through post after post after post about people talking about how much they miss range survival. And it's quite reasonable that they do, especially given the state of the current hunter specs. This video should not say it was a tough decision. It should absolutely say the time I fucked up massively and my apology to the hunter community. Make sure you watch this video and subscribe to this guy if you're interested in learning how to take one of the most popular specs in the most popular MMO in video game history and make it one of the least popular specs and screw over a ton of people who really enjoyed a theme and a play style because you think you know better than everybody. On top of that, make a video where you lecture people on class fantasy when you don't even give dual wielding to survival hunters, when the pinnacle of melee hunter in the game you're making it in, the guy has dual wield. And that you did all of that, and also on top of it, like a cherry on fucking top, you stuck them with the ugliest polearm animations ever. It is just completely egregious. And I think this down in the comments, they say this guy's also the one that was responsible for Warfronts. Which, oh my God, how did you not know? How did you not know that that was going to be? I just can't. The good news for me is that it all worked out in the end, but I declare myself today, after seeing this outrageous insult to my former range survival hunters, that I, Oklahoma, am now the patron saint of range survival. I will never forget, and I will never forgive what they did to you. And people will say, just chill out, man. Times change. Yeah, I've seen a lot of change in the World of Warcraft, and a lot of it sucks. And taking range survival away is top of that list, in my opinion. So I'm going to fight for the community. You should have done one of the following. Created it as a 4th spec and kept the range survival in place. Made the BM hunter the melee hunter. And at the very least, if you weren't going to do those two, you most certainly should have at least given them fucking dual wield. Oh, and that none of that was done, and you have the audacity to talk about it, about fantasy, and to talk about it like it was a brave decision. It was a catastrophe and an embarrassment, and it's disgusting, and it makes me sick. I love you, my former range survival hunters. I hope that you found a class like I did that can heal your heart, but I know some of you are out there just roaming around and it just, nothing ever fit like that range survival did. I hope they bring it back for you. I wish they would work on stuff like that, but unfortunately, a ton of the community just want to kill frogs and farm bronze, and they seem to be pretty jacked up on it. So I guess I really can't blame Blizzard for that. But I want you to know, range survival hunters, Oklahoma carries you in his heart, and I will always love you, care for you, and defend you. Don't let him gaslight you, family. It was an awesome spec, and it's absolutely disgusting that they took it away. May the light guide you until they bring it back. Oklahoma out.